the meeting to order at 4:38 PM. Before we go to minutes, I just wanted to finish up with you. Okay, Fred's not joining. He's tied up every after Wednesday from 4:30, from 4:45. We were discussing, Greg, see if we could change the meeting time, given that Fred's availability on Wednesday at this time has changed. As I just see now, I'm tied up every Wednesday from 4:45 until 6. We were discussing starting earlier, like 3 o'clock on Wednesday, or Tuesday has some pros and cons, but somewhat is another possibility. I mean, I guess there's always Thursdays. I just have to, right. I guess I could do it again too. I just have to, it'd be nice to keep it off week from my conservation, but
Sure.
but whatever, I'm flexible there. So I don't know what Greg, what's your availability for, let's say 3 o'clock on a Wednesday or a Tuesday or what?
Possibly, but it's going to be situational.
Okay, no different than it is at 4:30 on Wednesday?
Yeah. Well, it's just, toward the end of the day, other meetings and things tend to disappear. And at 3 o'clock, it's
Right, the earlier in the day, the more risky.
correct. Exactly.
Okay,
We can also try to keep these meetings to an hour.
yeah, we could try. If we get our stuff done, or how we do our stuff. So the question is whether we try the 3 o'clock on a Wednesday or we try the Tuesday a little later.
I would prefer Wednesday at 3 because every Tuesday and Thursday, well, Tuesday I'm fine until about 5 o'clock. Monday and Thursdays I'm tied up at 4.
So Tuesday at 3:30 would give you,
That'd be fine.
that would be that hour and a half, which we tend to do.
That would be fine. And Wednesday at 3 is fine.
And Wednesday at 3 is fine. And all the others, me, Gino, Dorothy, and you, Tom, are okay either way.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm pretty indifferent between those. Like I say, it's always going to be situational, but
I'm tempted to do the 3:30 on a Tuesday only because of Fred's constraint, whether he said 4:45, whether it gets a little earlier, that gives him it. I mean, the 3 o'clock, I guess, could possibly work for him.
why don't
Well,
we?
let's put it, the question is whether, do we want to meet in roughly 2 weeks, given some maybe aggregation stuff? Do we want to go for the 22nd, which is the Tuesday before the Christmas holiday stuff? Is that
No.
a time what?
No.
Others? Do you think we,
Don't care.
I'm okay.
the only question is whether we have,
We're in quarantine. We're not going anywhere.
Right.
yeah, no, my only issue, I haven't had any, I haven't had, I guess, in terms of budget stuff, in terms of that meeting or advisory, that's in the hands of the select board budget with David Williams. And as I gather from just briefly talking to Gino, that I guess he's trying to level fund the sustainability coordinator, which I'm not quite sure what that really boils down to, but I guess he said to them, to Gino, I think Dorothea was there, that they would, he would try to schedule a meeting with me and advisory before that, before submitting something. And I sent in an email yesterday asking him about, just sort of talking about where that is. I don't know. I guess there's probably nothing on the budget that we have to do before the end of the year. Would we want to even, well, I guess Greg's the one who doesn't want to meet then. We don't have 2 others. We don't know whether.
I can meet on the 22nd.
Okay. I mean, we could see how things go, whether do people want to prefer to we can see how this meeting goes, whether to move it one more week to the 29th. Do you want to meet during the week between Christmas and New Year's, or you'd rather meet before?
I personally would rather meet before, so let's give it a shot. Let's try to, I mean, if there's any aggregation thing that remains, it'd be really good to get everything done and out the door.
4:30 on on Tuesday, the 22nd.
I thought you said 3:30.
3:30. Oh, did I say 3:30? Okay. Is that better? Okay, we'll try 3:30.
Okay.
3:30 on Tuesday, the 22nd.
Very good.
Gino heard that. Or you know what? We can get the Zoom thing and I can get stuff posted. Okay. I am now, so that we keep up with stuff.
22nd at 3:30.
Yes. Moving on quick now, let's just move. Here's the set of minutes from the 24th meeting. I don't know if I have some edits a little further down below. I don't know whether people have it. I assume it's, you see it on the screen there.
Mhm.
This is, I assume nobody has comments here. Let's see, going down, I'm just going to scroll down. Okay, you can see if people read the draft versus also, you could just see a few suggestions I have for edits. People can comment or even have your own too before I scroll down.
That's fine.
Mhm.
Since Greg wrote them, you could see I was going to reword amorphous in general, whatever. I decided it was simpler to just delete that before I started adding stuff, because I know what it's getting at, but I would. So that was my compromise, or I could add more if you want to say more. Okay, I'm going to scroll down, ready to scroll down.
Yep.
The Guardian is not like Mass Save.
No, Mass Save it's just a whole program that's run by all the utilities. It parallels it in some ways. We talked about it as analogous, but it's really, I mean, we can go into, but Mass Save is a program, and then underneath Mass Save, they hire companies that do things.
For municipalities.
I mean, Mass Save hires companies to do stuff for residents, whereas the utilities have their own municipal energy efficiency program, and they vet companies like Guardian underneath them to do stuff with municipalities. So it's
Okay.
similar but not similar. So
Got it.
Yeah, good
I
to just eliminate it like you did.
Any other comments before I scroll down?
Yeah, the edit took out under streetlights, took out a word or something. Discussion of beginning the process.
Oh,
Yes.
yes,
Mhm.
good. Okay,
Good catch.
No problem with the substance, but just the
you
grammar.
know, that's it basically. I move that we accept the minutes as edited.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I, Greg,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
motion passes 4-0-0. I will send you this to you, Greg. I finally save this as final.
Yep. I'll
And,
fix it and send it in.
and you can clean it up. Okay, fine. We've got that done. I'm going to stop sharing. And you can bug me if I forget to send it. Okay, moving on. Let's, actually, I'd like to get, I'm going to move things around a little, if people don't mind, whether for community choice to get that out of the way. How do you want to do, how do you want to proceed? I mean, I've sent you some comments more substantive on the aggregation plan, and then a few lesser minor other things on the outreach plan. Do we want to discuss the issues on the aggregation plan draft? Should I even pull it up, like the version I sent back to you with everybody's stuff, or?
Well, why don't you, Michael? Because to be honest, I mean, I took a quick glance at it, but I've been so jammed the last few days. I haven't had a chance to go through them in any detail or to incorporate them into a new draft. So maybe, and since I think we're at the point where, you know, we want to have full committee vetting of the document so we can get it out of here and send it on to MPC. If there are, you know, still some sort of policy issues that we need to hash out, this would be the time to do it.
Okay, let me share the screen. Nice, let me get here.
You know, I just noticed you're not in the town offices today.
You talking about Gino?
Yeah.
Well, can't you see? Yeah, I'm right up there on second floor. Still sunny here too.
Oh, you're not, you don't have your normal photo.
I'm
That's
at my
what's,
I'm at my desk
at
He
your
moves
real
around.
instead of the
town-
conference room.
Thank you. I just so used to seeing that conference room scene.
Yeah.
Madam Douse.
Okay. So does the Sherborn power show up?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it at a reasonable scale? I can make it smaller to see more, or is it, if I made it any smaller, it'd be hard to read?
Looks good to me.
Okay, so I shouldn't make it any smaller. Like,
Perfect.
Fine.
okay. See a
That's
little
good.
bit more, but not much more. Okay, let's go down here. Here we go. The naughty. Okay. I'll just start with my big issue of, we have this issue of choices versus options. Whether we have these categories, like a cleaner option, a clean option, whatever we called it, and then the sort of budget or basic equivalent. We have these, my issue is, could we have more than one option under, are we, I just looking for the future, that whether these are defining what 3 options, or could we actually, by some weird choice, have 4 options? We have to have a, my question is, do we have to have a 1-to-1 equivalency at this planning stage with these choice categories and actual options that will be offered to people?
If I may weigh in, I feel that it's important at this stage of the process that we keep our, I know it might not be the best choice of words, we keep our options open as much as possible to remain as flexible so that we're not closed out in a decision that we are expected to make in the future. On the other hand, I think it's also very important that throughout the entire process, we keep it as simple and easy to understand as possible.
Oh yeah, when we present the plan, well, this plan, right, I guess.
I mean,
Right,
if we have 3 options with choices under each option, is that going to overly complicate decisions for homeowners?
right, just because we can't even keep the term straight.
Exactly. As
Because you
far
would-
as whether we call this choices or options, I don't frankly see.
Well, we decided to call them choice. We could change it, but right now we have these
That's
three
fine.
choices.
That,
And the
that's
question is
fine.
whether we just change the wording here so that whether we have to get clarity from MPC, whether
Mhm.
having three choices listed here means that we can only present three options when we go out to pricing, or two options, or could we still have, I don't really want to do four actual options in the end, but sometimes with the Texas wind and the pricing of renewables, I get a little concerned about what the future might bring for the renewables market. That we just have the flexibility to figure out what it is, the options that will, the actual priced options will be. So that just changes a little of the wording here.
Is there time for a quick call to MPC and ask that question, since they're so experienced with many towns?
I mean,
That
I tried,
question, I'm
right.
sure, has come up.
If that's really the issue of all of this, and forgive me if I've been dense up until now, whether the choices or larger categories can have ultimately more than one option or offering within them, I think it's pretty easy to draft to leave that flexibility in.
That's
Unless
the way I worded it. That's the way I edited it to do that.
unless MPC says that's crazy. And you know, I don't know that ultimately there's enough benefit to be gained to interject that level of complication and potential confusion. I mean, it's only right now that I've begun to understand it. And, you know, we're all believers here. We've been talking about this for months. We're all believers, and people who aren't, which is going to be the vast majority of people who are just presented this thing that they've never heard of before, if they start scratching their heads and start making a bunch of calls into town hall and that kind of thing, you know, because we can get either 80 or 90% renewables under one of the choices with two different options, it's not worth it. But I don't, unless MPC tells us that there is a reason not to build that kind of language flexibility into this, then we should just do it. And I'm happy to ask them that question.
Fine. I've made the edits here so that it just keeps the flexibility. That I've tried to keep it very, I've tried, and hopefully even if I've missed, the fact that there's three choices, which are the general areas, and then who knows what the specific price offerings or options will be after we get things back. And they could fit into different categories. I mean, that's why I guess I'm going to scroll down here. Actually, I should just get rid of this space here. I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the comments here. There's some other little things. But right, I mean, it's because it came up like in our last meeting, could Texas wind be so cheap, and that we like Texas wind, that somehow it becomes something that's comparable in price to basic service? Now, does that fit under a cleaner option or an even cleaner option, is where I was sort of, where I tried to soften the wording here, because it gets muddy. Basically, for the public education, we just want to talk to them about how we could have a cleaner option that has somewhat more renewables, and we have an even cleaner option which has maybe 80 to 100% or close to all renewables, and then we have the basic equivalent. So to me, in terms of education, it's fairly clear as to where the actual pricing will fall out and what we might want to offer, be specific offerings and options, whatever you want to call it. I think I called it options. That we can deal with later, but in terms of explaining the three choices, it's very simple. The kind of basic equivalent, a cleaner, and then an even cleaner. And it's fairly simple. We don't have to get into too much of whether the Texas wind is going to be, because we might not even want to offer, we might offer a Texas wind and a lot of local renewables as the two options that are renewables if Texas wind is that cheap. And they might be both fit into an even cleaner option in terms of percent, but who cares at this point? We just want to explain it to them that these are the kind of general choices we're going to look for, and we'll see how the prices come out.
The way I look at it, the cleaner option is going to attempt to come in at a price comparable to what Eversource requires for its basic price, its basic offering, correct? I mean, that's what it says up there.
Yeah, I mean, I said, we say that the town may target a price point that approximates it.
May target and
Right.
with that,
While yielding a higher mixture. I sort of changed the wording a little.
I like your change. And then the basic choice that's in here, I guess it's number 3
Yeah.
down below, it says basic equivalent. Hey, Greg, I don't know when that basic equivalent was added.
Yeah. Let me do some.
He's struggling. We're all struggling with the wording for that one because we don't.
Let me add to the struggle.
I don't like equivalent.
Yeah, I don't know that I do either, but it was something I was struggling with. But I should say that since this draft, Fred spoke with his daughter, who I wish you were on because
His daughter, Craig, I don't hear you really well. You're still, the volume is not good enough. Can we, do other people hear Craig really well, or it's
Yeah,
just me?
I hear him fine. Can you turn your volume up, Dorothea, on your?
I was trying to do that and I have no ability, which is.
I hear both of you well.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, so if you may repeat that, Craig, please.
happy to. Fred spoke with his daughter,
Uh-huh.
who is a marketing specialist.
Mm-hmm.
I forget where, but for something significant, whatever it is. Jimmy Fund, I think she's the
Jimmy Fund.
marketing or something for Jimmy Fund.
Wow.
He asked her some of these questions. What is the best way to market this? And she suggested that the basic, I think we should try to avoid the word basic because of confusion. Basic. She suggested budget, which implies a lower price, but also it's like maybe not quite that desirable. There's not a negative connotation to it, but it kind of like implies cheap. She suggested that the middle one be standard. And the reason is standard means normal, means what you'd normally expect. And it implies, kind of that's what everybody's doing. And then I forget what she said to the other one, the cleaner.
That's going to drive me nuts. I'll just tell you that. But go on. I've been arguing against that from the beginning, just so you know. It's too normative. It's too prescriptive around whatever that middle one is. The norm should be, I would say, I could argue that the norm should be the cleanest because that's what we all got to do. But nobody, you don't like that.
No,
So
I
just
like that.
right. And so therefore, there's no way I can live with standard being the second one. You can outvote me, but boy, I feel like that's really.
You cannot go out with this to people and tell them I'm forcing you to have a higher price as the standard or the default. Cannot do that.
Well, we need to find a way to encourage.
That's why we're not going to do it.
I agree, you can't force them.
I think
That's why I don't want to use standard either place.
right.
I understand your point, but I'm just saying that I find it
I think
themselves in the foot by calling it standard.
I think the basic option should have a pejorative connotation.
Oh, you like the idea of like those
Yeah.
electrons aren't as good as the other electrons.
Yeah, I like the word budget for that one.
Yeah, exactly. Or even something even more pejorative. We've
Based on
tried.
budget,
El Cheapo.
Yeah, it should be. We don't want people to say, "Oh, budget cheapest. I'm going for that one," without considering the
Exactly.
environmental benefit of
the other
cleanest
two-
and cleaner. So it
How
should be
about
something
refurbished?
refurbished,
I'm
right?
kidding, of course.
I know, but we should
outlet.
It's so basic equivalent, I don't think works.
No,
Basic might work. Budget, I think people will gravitate to budget. That's for me. I want the cheapest possible without
Well,
really.
with that, I would say to you,
Hey,
but
wait a minute, Andy, if you want the cheapest energy, you're not right sitting here in this committee. I mean,
No, I don't, it's
but
not
hold on,
me.
everybody, hold on. Don't forget the fact that
we're talking about the people out there in town.
Exactly, not me.
But hold on, the
But-
problem is,
And that's not the people on this committee.
Exactly.
that is
hey, hold
certainly
on, I just want to
true.
stick in one thing here in terms of all this stuff that we're worried about, where
Go
people
ahead.
to gravitate. Just remember, the real debate in all of this is going to come down to what's the default.
Right.
And the question, one of my questions in the thing here is whether, that I forgot to bring up, is when we come up with the three, let's say we come up with 2 or 3 actual price offerings or options. One of my questions is, along with just this one-to-one thing, is whether, do we have to use these names for when we come up with the actual options? Or we can figure out a naming for those things when we actually do it. Is
think-
whether they have to fit with these things.
Yeah.
Because that's the default is, I don't know. That's just a question.
I think we have to ask MPC, but I would think at the time that our plan is submitted to the state, the categories that we've chosen are going to be the ones we will be forced to use through marketing, because that's what they're approving.
Well, that's what I'm not sure. That's what I always want to confirm.
Well, ask MPC, but I think the bottom, the dirty choice should be called basic,
Dirty.
not dirty, but basic,
Dirty.
Dirty water.
right? But not equivalent.
Did anybody mention brown choice? I think I was reading this in one of the papers. Craig, you were that, right? You wrote
That's-
brown
that's a-
choice?
Fred wrote Brown, I think.
Or Fred wrote
That's an
brown.
interesting
Okay.
label.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Basic Brown.
Well, that to me is better than basic equivalent.
Well, the reason I put in equivalent was that, so that because that's descriptive but it's not the same as basic. I think if we call it basic, well, I don't know.
I actually don't have problem with basic equivalent. I know it's jargony, but I'm a jargony guy, but I don't mind it. I guess we'd have to figure out whether, if MPC tells us we've got to use these names for when we actually come up with the whatever price offerings we're going to make.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Please, Tom.
We're on page 2 of 11, and this is entertaining, but we've already had these conversations a couple
Good
times.
point. Good point.
Do we have to make these label decisions now, or can we move on?
Well, that's what we have to make the naval decisions probably now. The question is whether they have to stick when we actually offer the prices. And don't worry, this is the only contentious page.
Oh,
Right.
So
That's
that,
good.
I mean, there are a few other issues coming up, but like here, just scrolling down, there's hardly an issue
Right.
to the document.
Right.
okay, well, let's then decide this in the next 3 minutes.
Well, the question
I
is.
think we should-
Put.
We should come up with a term that dissuades as many people as possible to go with the basic choice. And if people see basic equivalent, I'm afraid people are going to gravitate to it.
What about conventional? Like at Whole Foods, you get organic or conventional, and conventional is a little bit iffy.
Yeah, that's maybe because conventional,
That's a confusing label to me.
I think it is too, especially if we have the default something else.
well, the default's going to be, the default will never be this basic.
Well, exactly.
For all we disagree on things, the default will certainly not be this one.
Absolutely.
That's the only
So
thing we can agree on.
the only reason I think to go with basic is because brown probably won't fly. but something that really dissuades people from going there.
Now, the question is, we could put it in the plan we could put an or in there so that we can figure out the labeling. You could put a basic equivalent or budget choice. And then we could figure out how to label it later, because people are never going to remember this document. The only thing they're going to remember, that's why I want to get the question. The only thing they're going to know is when we put out when we discuss specific prices.
What, right, I agree. What, for Michael and Greg, what does the word equivalent add to this choice for you guys? Why can't it just be basic? Why do you have to have the word equivalent there?
Very good question.
We read through the document, there were just a lot of instances of utility basic service and the basic choice, and
Right, I don't have a problem with basic, I have a problem with equivalent.
How about CCA basic versus Eversource basic? That way, whenever we write in the document, to the extent that anybody reads this thing beyond us, that when we talk to people, we could always say, well, there's Eversource basic service, and then there's the CCA basic choice.
But they'll be identical.
and we make sure that when referring to Eversource basic service, we always have another word in front of it, like Eversource or utility basic service.
Yeah,
Right,
it gets,
exactly.
it gets a
So we
little
never use
cumbersome.
basic service without having the utility, because we're never going to use it for our thing, because it'll just be basic choice. So it's basic, it's going to be CCA basic choice, or it'll be Eversource or utility basic service. And those
Can
three things, and
can
I
I-
can live with that.
Yeah.
Um,
And possibly make a suggestion. This basic, I just remember that's really has to be at the floor of the state requirement, right? 32% or 60.
20% now and going up.
Yes, that's
I
right.
wonder if that part of the equation could be in the name. State
Right.
mandated or something,
We
or
could call it minimal RE, minimal renewables.
sure.
I
But then pe-
like that one because
No.
it reflects, it's the minimal,
It's the
word-
state requirement. This is.
Yeah,
this
but
is-
people are gonna say, oh, we're getting some, they don't, I bet a lot of people don't even realize that Eversource is required to provide 20% renewables.
Yeah.
So when they see minimal renewables, like, oh, we're getting something, and wrongly conclude that it's something they hadn't had before. So I don't like that one at all. I think,
Okay,
Michael, as yours of a CCA basic choice, I'll live with that. I think that's fine.
I could put in our budget if we want, and that, see whether they'll let us have the choice, so we could figure out the wording later.
Okay. Okay, I don't even like budget, but I like basic. I don't want people to be attracted to it.
They're
then you
they're
have
gonna
to pick the
they're gonna
brown.
be they're gonna go for some people, and it's up to us to educate to minimize this population. But some people are always gonna go to the cheapest one.
Of
There's no-
course. So we
There's
shouldn't
no
call
getting
it.
around that.
But
I
just
agree.
realize that most people are not going to lift their finger to deal with anything other than the default.
Hopefully more people are going to be that way than the people that Tom is talking about. But I agree with Tom. If we give them a word to describe it that sounds like it's cheaper, there's people who are going to go for it. So I would say go with basic, don't go with budget.
CCA basic
I'm going to go back to budget, because I think if we call this the base, I'm sorry, did I say budget? I meant basic.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
gonna go back to basic or I would recommend going back to basic. And we just go through the document and make absolutely sure that when utility basic service is referred to, like, for example, if somebody opts out of the program completely, they go to utility basic service, then, that is stated UBS, utility basic service, or EBS, or whatever. It's made very clear. And we can, maybe my fears of the confusion at this point should just go away.
Yeah,
Okay, I just put it in there. We'll call it a CCA basic choice. Done.
done.
Okay. And I've cleaned up I've tried to clean up, you don't have to go through it here, I could do it with Greg. I've tried to clean up the issue between a choice and specific, and the idea of options
Okay.
underneath it, and he can clear up with MPC that essentially options could be what we're gonna actually offer, or options or offerings, or whether they're gonna be the actual prices that are offered, and choices are just these broader categories.
Right.
And I
Is it-
tried to clean that up here.
Okay, so this first line of number 3, you're going to get rid of the equivalent hyphen equivalent after.
Good
Basic.
idea. I'm gonna send you this file, the CCA basic choice.
Boom.
Okay. Now, in terms of other
Bravo.
issues here, there's other questions here that you, Greg, can just look at before you talk to MPC. There was something about these recs that are,
Yeah, I'll talk to them. That was in their original document. So, I mean, I didn't put that in.
Yeah.
you know, I just wanted to understand whether there are other ways. I just want to make sure that we're not boxing ourselves in. I'm pretty sure the recs are the only way, because it seems to be a nationwide policy, recs. But I just wanted to make sure that there's no other way if we ever, yeah, I don't know if there's any other way to get it. I guess if we ever put solar on a big solar array somewhere, or had surplus from town buildings and we sold them, whether we'd still get recs anyway, or whether there'd be some other mechanism. I guess I had question marks here about this overall result in prices overall, because I think we're not talking about price stability. Then the utility, basic service, we have that there, and may result in lower prices overall. I think needed to be in there.
Why is overall needed to be in there? Because winter and summer, or
Because, right, it could
they
be over,
combined, or
it
explain
could be
that to
over
me?
time, winter and summer, it could be, and from year to year. We don't know how our prices will be compared to whatever the basic
Yeah.
service is. So I just want to say that it could result in lower prices, and may result. in
It's not so much the season, but it's the time of the bid,
Right.
or the contract start and stop dates, and
And right, and they do 6 months. So I just wanted to generalize it. But I guess, I mean, it doesn't have to be in there. You could see, I would just leave it there and then see whether they comment. I don't think it's that.
Mhm.
Let's see, if I go scroll.
I personally think the overall, from my opinion, in this, when I read that, I don't understand it. In a sense, if I don't know about the winter and the summer pricing, I just don't understand what the overall means. One could say the combined average of summer and winter in comparison to
But over time,
over time, exactly.
Okay, that's fine.
yeah, I was trying to average.
Or-
Because it
over-
could
over
be,
the life- Over the life of the contract or something. That's probably the most accurate way to describe it.
yeah, that's good. Because that, it depends on the timing of the contract.
it's actually, I guess I really meant overall during the term of the contract. Does this make,
Yes. Clearer.
because you never know how it's going to go from one year to the next with how things are going to go.
It's a moving target.
And I even tried to, I think I loosened up somewhere about where the prices, maybe that's down below. Because once we clean this up, we're sending it to them to get NPC's comments.
Right.
You can see, these are just little minor things that I think Greg, if you have any problems with my edits, you can call me about it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth it for here. I'm trying to see what's the next
There
issue.
was something later on, Michael, that I wanted to ask you about, but it's not-
Right here, there's a bunch of stuff here. Oh, yeah. Here's the other issue. There's another one. There's two issues on this screen here. One is, since this is a long-term plan, I don't want to drop the option of possibly putting in an operational adder, just in case what that is allows us to do, or whether it's turned out, let's say in Newton, where they went with a default option that was lowering about 40 or 50 or 50% renewables. They actually started a program to get people to step up to 100%, and their coordinator person was working on that. Now, we're not going to do that on our first contract period anyway. I don't think this will happen, but I don't want to cut out the option to have it in the plan, even though,
Yeah, we can ask them about that. I mean, they were very discouraging about this, about the prospect of using this, but it's worded conditionally. The town may direct.
Yeah.
that's why all I wanted to do is that it may direct, and it's only up to.
Yeah,
So I think we should get rid of the flexibility, and I wanted to add, there's a comment here that I wanted to add some other wording that whether we can make us future-proof by saying that we also would want to possibly use other adders as made available. Or whether it's that we sort of, so that's what this comment here is, that,
Yeah, so we get the authorization now and we implement it if it,
right. I just want to make sure that, I mean, they might not, DPU might not accept this kind of wording, but we want to try.
Yeah.
So that's my comment there.
that's fine.
Then on this rate setting, I just generalized that I think you made some edits that I disagreed with, because in the end, prices, that this sentence had a different meaning than I think you took it for. Plus it's because I guess it's maybe not worth talking about here. We could just talk about it. I just thought you misread what the original was. And that contracts, I've seen contracts where the price isn't fixed for the full term. And so anything we have in here that would imply that, I wanted to get rid of anyway. I can't tell if that was somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, if such things exist, that wasn't my understanding, but if such things exist, I agree with you.
Oh yeah, I was looking at somebody's aggregation and they had a price change within it from one year to the next for something, for one of their options. But whatever, you could reread that on my notes there. I don't think it's worth doing it in front of anybody.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is, again,
that's pretty standard.
yeah, no, but I'm dropping, I think it's something you added, Greg, that I disagreed with, that you'll just look at whether this whole, you can read it again. We don't have to do it now. But I mean, there's a different issue about the fact that, let's see.
No, is that question of somebody who opts out and then tries to opt back in during the term of the contract.
Right. But the utility doesn't reserve the right. I guess I disagree. The wording that got put in there didn't.
But they do.
They do reserve the right.
They do reserve the right.
They don't have to accept people back in at the original price.
Uh-huh.
Right.
As he said, Paul said, as a practical matter, they haven't forced that issue, but they do reserve the right. That's what.
Oh, but they don't reserve. I didn't get the impression that they reserve the right not to let them in. They got the right to change the price, but not whether to let them in.
Correct.
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 I read that the word changing that you did, that then I guess I could see. Maybe it was a wordsmithing thing. I read it as if they had the reserve that that it wasn't that the utility had some control, and it's not a utility. That's the other thing. It's the supplier.
Well, it is a utility though. It's Eversource Basic, right?
No, Eversource. No, this is not about Eversource Basic. Eversource Basic is always available. this opting in and out is for the supplier. So the wording you had there, I thought.
Well, that's true.
That wording, the word utilities had to be changed to supply.
Supplier.
Right. All customers will have the right to opt out of the program at any time.
I mean, my concern was that it seemed like it was saying that the utility had the right not to even let them, not to even let them back in at all.
Right.
That's where I got hung up with the rewording,
Yeah.
besides the fact that,
They reserve the right to re-enroll them at a price that may not be the same as the program.
Right. And it's the supplier.
You're
It's
right.
not the utility.
That's correct.
I could see sticking some of that back in, just making it a little clearer. And that's why I didn't think it made, that it added anything, that a price, but, so yeah, I thought once it means that you have to give them anything, they have to come back in anyway. I didn't think the phrase added anything, but I could go either way. If you want to reword it to be clearer, include the supplier.
Okay.
Go with that.
Fair enough.
And again, this is again, the same issue down here.
Right.
And whether it just has to be changed to supplier if you really feel the need to keep it back in there.
Okay.
Okay, then that's it.
Good job.
There's a few smaller things here or there if you have issues that I don't think it's worth going into now,
Okay.
given what we've spent on this, but I think that you can see whether I got the choices and options right. And you know where to find me.
Yep.
I'll file save. I'll send
My
you.
associates over to have a little talk with you.
Yeah, right. Oh, there we go. Oh, just make sure they keep a social distance and wear masks.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Then, okay, I'll send you this document with the other thing here, and I had some other little things here. Okay. Did other people read and have comments on the
Outreach?
outreach thing? I had a few comments, but I'm not sure whether it's worth going over, other than the fact that we wanted to just get more. Oops, okay, closed. I mean, it's mainly, I mean, the only real issues there are, whoops, hold on, what I got here. Hold on. Oh, there it is. I think the sustainability work, share. I mean, it's really for all of us to look at, is really just the issue of this list of places and where things are going to be done. Is really the meat of it. It's interesting to learn what languages are spoken.
Yeah.
At Sherborn.
Excuse me, is this the cleaned up version that Craig circulated?
Yes.
It is, right? With
Yeah.
all edits incorporated.
No, this is the one with all the before. This is just the marked up version.
Okay, did we not progress into a newer version?
Well, the newer version was just accepting these track edits. I'm just showing that with the track.
Okay, so, okay.
And the only questions I had here are, can we really use the e-alert system before we put it in there? Because I'm not
Okay.
sure what's allowed for that. I think that might be more for, I mean, the climate change is a crisis and an emergency. So, but I'm not sure this qualifies as that kind of emergency.
Well,
I think what that's referring
I know
to is
that
the emails that go out for announcements from the town, not the reverse 911 telephone calls that indicate actual physical emergencies. It's called the alert, but that's probably a misleading term, but it's just general announcements to the town.
Oh, okay. As long as we, I just,
there's lots of different, I mean, rec department or something, I think may have
Yeah.
we can look at it, but I think almost every department has the possibility of using that.
as
That's
long
right.
as long as we're sure that we could use it, that's fine. That's all I cared about, is that I wasn't sure whether they would give us access. I just want to confirm it we're bound to this. So, That's all I care, is that we're just cautious about the wording there. And I couldn't tell how many other email addresses we might have access to. It's just my other comment here. Of whether there's a Pine Hill email address, or I don't know whether it's worth calling the churches to see whether they're the kind of thing to do it, or whether it's not worth. I mean, whether this is at the level of working with the churches on it versus just, I don't know if it's worth that level of reaching out. I don't know what others think, whether we need to add, whether this is good enough. Is the state going to somehow say we didn't do enough? We could always do more than this. The question is whether the state wants to see more written down. And maybe that's just a question to Marlana.
The sense I was getting from Marlena's comments earlier is that, where there are significant subgroups or populations that need special attention, we should mention them specifically. But if not, then those can be dealt with more generically, and you can kind of tailor what we do here to where the needs are.
So then it's really just, in our case, it's really just the elderly, because that's the only group. I don't know if we have any elderly and low income in this paragraph.
Well, we can, I think, I suspect that what I have here is more, well, I don't know if this was the last thing I did, but
It is.
I think this is more than MPC would say we need, frankly.
Where are we talking now? Direct my attention to what paragraph we're talking on.
Well,
Cursor is.
yeah, this is that paragraph where he has a list of
Okay.
homeowners, renters, living in subsidized housing, seniors, immigrant populations, and non-English speakers, seniors, veterans, as well as other organizations. I can't tell about that. Support means that they're not just organizations that support other community institutions. I'm not quite sure what that meant. What?
I think what it's trying to say is we don't have to go around knocking on doors of every household that would fall into one of these categories, but we should make an effort to reach organizations that represent them. If there's a low-income homeowners organization, or if there is a renters organization, or if there is an organization of non-English speakers or people from a different country, we should reach out to those organizations.
Well, we should know what they are. I think what we want to do is saying that generically is kind of, I wouldn't want to go down that route, because we already know there are no renting organizations. It's only a matter of whether we would go with Woodhaven, for example, or the whatever Leland Farms.
Right.
Well, in the list above, then at a minimum, if they want to target these types of groups, the one group we do have is the elderly. And they have a publication, a newsletter that the COA sends out called the Sherborn Link. We should mention that
Yeah,
specifically.
the Council on Aging publication.
Right. So basically in here.
Yeah, you got it right there.
I'll
Council
just
on
put in,
Aging.
I'll just put in a note here that council, COA, the link, which we all get anyway. I think, don't we all get it? Don't you guys?
No,
get
just you seniors.
No,
What? Oh, yeah.
That's everybody here. All right, I'm gonna make a comment, and Greg has heard me raise this.
And that's why I put it back in.
Thank you, Greg. We know that there is a senior organization, the COA, but above, when we talked about, well, we want to have the option, if there's an adder in the future that we can use, we should do that. So all I advocated was that if a group comes up, perhaps they're not in existence now, but if there is a Brazilian citizens organization or a low-income, population organization, we should make an effort to reach out to them. I think the town should feel an obligation to be as inclusive as we can.
The only reason I'm not sure whether we have to be that broad is that this, unlike the aggregation plan, which has a life that goes on for who knows how many years, this is just an outreach document on getting that aggregation plan approved. So this document is more for the current setting, and that versus, this is the way I'm viewing it, is that this document is for the current setup, and we should know whether there are those groups. I don't mind putting it in here as long as we know that there are groups, because I don't want them to say, geez, so what renter group did you advertise to? And we know that there is none. So we didn't do it.
Then it's just a quick, wordsmithing to make it more conditional. But this is not to get the program approved. This is after the program's approved and we get a price and we launch it to the public so they know what their options are.
I thought the launching to the public is down here, that this is a different part of the document. This is the formal education and outreach period is further down where we have things to put here. The part that we're looking at here is just during this
Regulatory review period. Okay,
That's
so then
why-
down below, how is that same thing worded as far as
It's
outreach?
Formal education during when it signs an electricity contract. Then there is no wording here. We just have this list here. This is when we're doing the public release and announcement. And this is, I don't know whether this is the part that has a life beyond this first contractual period.
But you raise a very good point. And then further down, is there anything about reaching out to like COA? Because that's when it's really important, when you can actually tell them what the options are.
Well, then it's all
And they have to make decisions.
Right, exactly.
So it's
Yeah,
this
yeah.
part here. It's this part here that we didn't have as much, where we need to boost up here, where we want to put in things like, crap.
It's just,
This is where we need to put elderly, which is basically the COA/Woodhaven group, because I don't know if they're the same thing, because it's Woodhaven. And then whether there's Leland Farms. I don't know whether there's anything.
well, again, I think it should be inclusive.
Can you go down half a page?
Yeah, go down half a page.
Right there. The town will host at least 2 community-wide public education sessions, blah, 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 Council on Aging, and 1 additional session through a community-based organization, maybe the Community Center Foundation or something, whatever it is.
Okay,
Program website, community groups, ask them to share the dates with their members via email, social media, and what have you.
all right. So where does it say, look for that community groups?
The bottom of that paragraph.
Okay. Telephone sessions to community groups.
Maybe we cross-reference back up.
Yeah,
Okay, you can do that. So this is separate from what we're doing. So is a public education, why isn't the public education event just having a public hearing to everybody? Why do we have to tie it to a community-based organization, or we're a community-based organization? What happens if the select board and the energy committee decide have a public hearing? Doesn't that fit underneath public education? And
That's
that's what we
probably
would really do.
one of multiple
I mean, I would think that
events.
the main event that we would do would be us doing something with the select board and having as many people as we can rouse to come into the community center or town, or get them all into the select board room, and it'd be broadcast if we're even getting it into the room, because everybody will be Zooming.
Yeah, but
But
how much time on that select board meeting would you get?
no, we would have a special special meeting of them and us.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That would be the biggest thing for outreach.
Yes,
And-
yes.
And these other two things, that's what I don't understand, that these two community-wide public, that why isn't the one of them really us doing something with the select board and every other
Right.
town agency? That's the main one, and whether we want to fine tune something with whether we'd want to have one with the Council on Aging, that would be certainly is our largest Council on Aging, and maybe we bring in Leland Farms. I don't know what to call Leland Farms. I guess is that our 40B, or I don't know. Do we know any,
Yeah, affordable housing.
is there any organization for Leland Farms? Do you know?
I don't
They-
know.
Well, they have a condo association.
Okay. So maybe we just put that the Leland Farm Condo
And
Association.
and I was about to bring up all these new 40Bs have condo associations.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at as well, is, listen,
Field-
things may
Fields in
change.
Sherborn.
Yeah, things may change, so we gotta be allowed for the change.
Leaving it vague like this might be better.
I think-
Local-
I think
lo-
so.
Local condo associations.
And renters associations.
That's right. We might have a 40B with
With
apartments.
renters,
It's being permitted now.
exactly.
I mean, I guess the question is whether this thing also is applying. This is our future plan of how we do things versus what we're doing in the next year. But I guess all I care is that it's sort of, I don't care whether it's generalized or this or that, but that I would think that the largest, one of the main public meetings would be organized by us with the select board for the whole town.
Right.
But remember what they said, if we put it in here, we have to do it that way. If it's general, we can do more, right? So if we say one other organization, maybe instead of community-based organization, we can say community department or organization, something like that.
But is the main one, but we're promising the Council on Aging.
The group charged with the single most identifiable and probably largest group of particularly
Some sort
vulnerable
of,
citizens.
right.
And frankly, with the best communication channels and funded communication channels.
Right.
I mean, better than anybody else in town.
As long as you can find a general way for community-based organization or just, or say community-based and or town municipal board or something like that.
Okay.
As long as whatever we would do as a town, as long as there's some way of generalizing that community-based to, unless people interpret it that it includes community-based and or town, community and or town-based organization,
Right. Okay.
something like that.
right. Look, I'm a lawyer. I'm good at weasel words, so I'll see what I can do.
I'll just stick in that as a reminder here. And the only question is whether, well, I put some things here or, right, but I guess let's think of it practically. This is the stuff that's after we've gotten, this is once the plan's approved, signs, see, that's what I actually have trouble with is this is when we sign its electricity contract. So this is after we've done most of what we want to do anyway. Because this is when we've actually signed the contract. So that means we've already gotten indicative bids. We've met with the select board and we probably, the biggest public hearing that's going to be the big one is once we get the bids, and I'm not sure what we do, it's just a vision. We have our three choices. We go out to bid, we get the indicative stuff. So we see what Texas wind is like, what other renewables are like, what the basic equivalent is going to look like. And we know what Eversource's thing is like, at least for only for 6 months, or a few months, less than that. But we know something about the pattern. And we're sitting there with this 3 weeks that they say, it could take longer in our case, given the way we go through things, and maybe the indicative won't be so great, but that'll be still indicative, that during that 2, 3, 4 week period between getting the indicatives and then going out for the finals, that's gonna be the big critical hearing with the select board and everybody else.
No. Not gonna do it then.
No?
No, oh, no. This
So
is
who's
after
gonna,
the
who's
contract.
gonna decide who's gonna decide what the specific options and offerings are and the default?
The select board. No, we're not, you can't have a public hearing during that period of time
Why?
Mhm.
because you're not gonna have time.
You have like 2 weeks.
This refers to after the contract is signed. This is the implementation phase.
I agree, but I'm saying to you that no, I'm trying to think of what the implementation, so this is a different level of education.
This
But,
is coming, people, and here's what you have to do. You're going to have these 3 or 4 options, whatever we end up with. Here's what they mean. Here's what you have to do to opt out. It's going to be automatic. Here's what you have to do to opt out. Here's when it occurs. That's what this is about right now.
I know what it is about. I was just trying to think of the fact that in the end, okay, I'll back off because so it's different. It's a different kind of education. No, I agree. I take back what I said because in the sense that this kind of education that we're talking about now is not controversial kind of education. It's just, here's your choices and options and this is how the whole thing works.
On the point of whether we include COA, Woodhaven, Leland Farms, I would leave them all out, even COA. We're gonna do it, but why put it in there specifically?
Because the COA is one, because we're promising it down here.
Okay,
Are
but
we promising it here?
Yeah,
that's a different phase and for a different purpose.
No. This is in the same section. This thing.
it's throughout the plan.
No, but it's under this is under D, which is
Right.
normal. Under D, we have this list of things that we're going to publicize.
Right.
And then we have publicity there.
Why can't you say community organizations?
Okay, fine. You could, I don't care. If
I just don't like the specificity of Woodhaven, Leland Farms, COA, and then just say community organizations.
Well,
And then we can decide, find out who is in a community organization and
Yeah,
take
but
it from there.
hold on, but we're just talking about the press release and announcement here.
Okay,
And I'd say that we're going to give it to this Council on Aging, and I would probably give it to the Leland Funds, sort of a co-op organization. That,
well, I'm sure, I agree with you. We will, for sure. But there may be others out there who will say, how come we're not included?
such as,
I don't know, such as. That's much better.
fine. And you could decide later on after this here.
Right.
Right. No, in the end, no, I'm just coming to terms with the fact that the education here is just much more straightforward. There's no real discussion. There's not a lot of explaining, not debating or discussing. And
you know
that,
what? As I'm looking at the wording of this, Michael, I think that line should come out entirely. And here's why. The town will publicize a press release announcement about the program launch and program details via. The town is not going to do anything via community organizations.
it won't?
We're not beholden to them. We can't guarantee that they're going to do anything. So I wouldn't say that the town is going to publicize program details via community organizations.
Aren't we required to by at least MPs? Didn't MPC say we needed to?
Why is that any more harder to do than an announcement sent to the local media?
Because you send them an announcement.
Same thing with a community organization. We send it to Council on Aging and we send it to the Woodhaven. and we
Well,
send
then
it to you.
say announcement sent to.
Right, that's what it's under.
Okay.
It's under just sending out a press release, and then it's via. And, or you could change the word via or
No.
/2, so that we're just saying, once we've notified them, that's good enough. So it's.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
two.
Fair enough.
Good.
And fine, I guess. I mean, right, then we're back to this thing here. I just a little concerned that we have too many words about renters and this and that here. That's going to get us in trouble.
What? No, I don't think it does. It's such as, it's the same such as. And if they don't exist, they don't exist.
Why don't we do the
Okay.
thing and say, including but not limited, or, to the extent appropriate or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, yeah, okay, as long as they don't come back and say, well, you know your town, you should know what's appropriate now. Why are you telling as appropriate? Just tell me.
It could
what-
change. It's a living document.
And, we could find out that there's an organization of 3 renters in town that we
Fine.
don't know about. So
I guess as long as you check with them that they're not gonna hold, I guess as long as, I would like it for you to ask Marlana.
if we took this all out, they're not going to care. They've already indicated that to us.
I just don't want to overpromise. That's all I want to get. I don't want to get into it. When we do accountability later. Because they're
Correct.
going to say, because we're not going to, we know that immigrant groups and non-English speakers. Right. We should know whether is something like that. I feel like listing it when we know that there's no group. Sure, you could say we could find out. Right. Is there the biggest group is Portuguese speakers? It's like,
24 of them.
right. Now, I think I could say fairly safely that, Gino, have you heard of any language-based groups in town? Portuguese, Italian? You have the Italian one where you live. Do you have one here in Sherborn?
No,
You could ask the school system how many language,
yeah.
But the idea that there's
there's just two.
But I think we're covered by just saying such as, in case there are some.
okay, fine, as long as the state doesn't think that it's like,
Well, let's talk to Marlena about that.
okay, fine. I don't want to speak any more about it. I've made my point, you guys.
Okay.
Okay. And maybe we don't need to talk about this anything more other than, you've given enough feedback. I'm gonna just,
So what is my deliverable here? Go through this, make the changes, come up with another draft. Are we gonna circulate it one more time for final discussion at the?
no, I think you should just send, I think each of these 2 documents, if you don't think there's any questions to come back to us, and if there are any big questions, you could come back to a couple of us. You could find others that if you need to consult with the other group of 2 of you, the 2 of you, the 3 of you. See if that, it seems pretty clear. And if you think that there's something I would try to get a document, and even if you have a few questions that you want to go back to the committee about, that you just put that in a note.
Right.
But you still send it off to MPC to see if we can get any feedback on what we've done.
I concur with that too.
Does that make sense to everybody else? Tom and,
yeah, that's fine.
okay,
And Greg, if you have any questions as this is going on, I'm happy to talk with you about it.
Yeah, please. 2 heads are better than 1,
right.
or none. 2 heads.
And I don't know what kind of head I offer. Okay, fine, done here.
Deadhead.
Yes, I wasn't a real deadhead. I was a little one.
A little deadhead.
I
Yeah, I was a
never,
little- I was a
never
little-
saw that. I never saw the attraction of that, I have to say.
Yeah, okay, well, you're just too young. Yeah. Fred, I think, but did I hear that Fred was I can't remember if he was. once
Fred
commented.
probably was a deadhead.
Fred probably was a deadhead.
I could see Fred.
Okay, so now I have 3 documents. Okay, let me stop sharing and get rid of this. Let's see, here we are. Let me get rid of that one. So I have 3 files to send you. Let's see what our agenda is now that we've met for our.
Yeah, I got it up here.
I'm looking at it here. Okay, website design. Any updates on the website design stuff?
Yeah,
Well-
so far, we have met once with the group, discussed a couple of changes that I communicated back to our web designer, and then we'll see a new version of the homepage. And our next meeting is next, Tom.
Monday, isn't it?
Monday, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Monday or
Moving
Tuesday.
forward. We're moving forward in good steps.
Yeah, Monday.
Okay, so inch or foot by foot.
Yeah. Making progress.
Very good progress. We're decluttering, we're putting our heads together, what works best. We're talking about what to find where things sit the best way. And these are very good discussions, and I'm very happy for all the good comments that I got and received. And ultimately, as I said, once we have that all finished, I have to run it by David and get his input as well. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
designer knows that this is a multi-step stakeholder process. So we just have to really bring a consensus together here on what works and what looks good, what it's appealing to people. And we are a big step forward now.
Okay. And I guess at some point, is there, I guess the bigger picture on outreach of, that only made me think of it is because next Monday there's a Mass Energize meeting. What do you think, Dorothy, about where Mass Energize is ever going to fit? Is it just a matter of coming up with $2,000? Is that what's
It is a
holding us?
matter of coming up with $2,000, and I think I will make that pitch at some point when I will present the website to David and say this is a way that we can reach, track, and get analytics on our residential residential housing stock improvements that are actually taking place. So I think that will be my pitch, and I was being asked to put together a list of things that I need, and that will be among them for effective outreach.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to show if you get around to making the pitch, just showing them, let's say, what they did for
It's,
Weston or Newton or whatever it is, because I think it is such a nice practical thing that I think, I mean, part of me is wanting to, that's how much I want to coordinate when we release the website itself. How much sometimes I feel like I'd really like to be able to do that. At the same time, we're having the MPC thing, whatever, the aggregation website, as well as the Mass Energize all as a bundle would seem nice. I wouldn't want to hold up the website, but somehow the idea of having it go out as one big launch seems very attractive.
that would be very impressive, although I assume, Dorothea, sooner rather than better asking for money.
I am, yes, I
You
will
know,
do that.
with
the
the
coming
municipal
week.
budget situations.
Mhm.
it's-
That was is on my list to do, and I got an email. I will respond to that, and it will be among those things I've been asking for.
Right.
I hope they find the $2,000.
They
I mean-
will, they will.
Okay, because doing it as because I think that's fairly easy to add on. I don't think that's a very time consuming thing to.
No, it's not.
That's what I'm excited by that. I think that the budget, it seemed unclear whether they're, from a little part of the conversation with Brendan Daly was that there was a sense that real estate prices in Sherborn have been doing reasonably well. And that the gauge for acceptability of our budget is less tied, which I think of it more as the absolute level of what's the average tax per building per home. But their metric that's much more important is the tax rate and keeping it below the $20. There seems to be some,
That in the proposition 2.5 that you
Yeah.
don't want an override, and to level fund all these departments when you still have salaries and pensions and everything else increasing. How do you do it?
Two and a
How do
half
you do
doesn't
it?
seem to be as much of a problem, but the $20 tax rate is the real sort of,
Psychological.
not more than that to
Also
them.
a real estate killer.
Um, well,
is-
well, you think, well, that's, whatever it is, there's different views, but whatever it is, I don't want to discuss it other than the fact that that is a guiding principle. Whether we agree or not agree, I just wanted to put it that it's a guiding principle, and it seemed like they're on a path that they could probably keep under the $20 with the kind of level funding that they've been talking about. I don't know if anybody's heard anything differently. I don't know whether Gino with budgeting for planning, that it seems like they just want the level funding plus the 2% salaries. And that seems to be on a path
That's the guidance, yes.
that's workable. And that seems to coincide with keeping under $20 tax rate because the real estate prices have been doing well. So that's,
How are we going to pay for the library overruns?
I don't know. That's another committee. And so,
It's a
and
big
there's all
number.
those people who donated who can keep donating. Since we're running sort of towards the end of our normal time of things, I want to try to start a quick thing that we often don't do of, whoops, hold on. A document that I sent out to you.
Yeah, Dorothy and I couldn't open it.
Yeah. It
I
wasn't
couldn't
open.
either.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's nothing wrong with the PDF. The PDF file didn't work somehow.
Right.
Well, this is what
Yeah.
I sent out. I'll send it out again. This whole topic of keeping ourselves all accountable on what we're doing and tracking what we're doing. I've started this. This is something that I had from the very beginning, 6 or so months ago, that I just sort of updated, and you can see whether this kind of format works or doesn't work.
Mhm.
Introduce this thing, and maybe we make sure we cover it in more detail next time.
Okay.
And actually, can I ask you, do you have a line for the grant that Gino and I are working on with
Exactly.
Natick and
The
Charles
wa-
River?
Watershed modeling grant, right?
We
Mhm.
haven't,
Down here, look at row 47, 42.
Stormwater Natick Dam.
well, it's separate. It's totally separate from Natick Dam.
I know, but I put them together on the Charles River so we can keep them separate.
Natick Dam is the second line, if you wouldn't mind adding.
Yes, I could do that.
And maybe next meeting, we can update you on the modeling.
Right. I mean, that's part of what I wanted to do, use this as
Yeah,
whether we could find a way, a streamlined way to touch base on running down all of our working things. Because right now we've basically done community choice. And we've done 2 out of these.
yeah.
And that, and though I always try to bring up the idea of the grant opportunity monitoring, to which I would say, for example, like doing it, an example of what I'd like to see if it works for us, using this and keep updating this, is like grant opportunities. Gino, Dorothea, or anybody else, any grant opportunities that we know about?
At the moment, I'm pursuing a grant that's the Grinspoon grant, the Cooler Communities. You know this grant, Michael?
Yes,
It is
I know.
tied. I'm in close collaboration with the grant director. And this year, because of the pandemic, usually the Grinspoon grant goes to schools of lower economic stature. And this year, as we all know, these schools are basically grappling much more than other school districts do. And there's barely any submission or application from the regular, let's say, usual suspects.
Oh, so
And it's an opening and an opportunity for us as a, let's say, wealthy town, if I may say, or in comparison to the usual grantees, it's an opportunity to get to that grant. And at the moment, I'm trying to convince our superintendent that this is a good opportunity. And he feels like, at the moment, that he cannot do this to his administration because they're completely overwhelmed. So I'm trying to still make this happening. And I have a conversation later on Friday with Grinspoon on possibly me being the instead of having the schools apply for it, I will apply for it, and I will work through sustainability to manage that grant. And that seems to be a possibility that she and I are currently exploring.
Okay.
That's a really good initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a vacuum, you know, let's rush in to fill it.
I have the same idea, Craig, but it seems like there is kind of like a wall that comes down when we talk about the superintendent and running initiatives associated with extra work to the teachers. And I can completely relate to that. The grant director of the Grinspoon was telling me that so many schools basically had to back off with their plans to apply for this because they don't see the bandwidth. At the same time, they do have applicants where superintendents say, yes, let's do that if we find dedicated teachers and parent volunteers that run with it. I do have these dedicated teachers and parents brought along, but I still need kind of like the okay from the superintendent if we apply through the schools. If I apply for it, then I can run it. I don't need the blessing of the superintendent, and I can bring that grant to Pine Hill. People are very excited about, you know, the opportunity that some sustainability money is coming to programs that they always wanted to build, such as the bird garden at Pine Hill. And there's this program that I put together called Intergenerational Climate Conversation that Liz Friedman is completely excited about. And I will be also, if I apply for it, will be able to direct some money to that particular teacher to run this program, and then possibly have, let's say, a couple of students that have been essential and have been contributing to this project, also be able to give some money to them. So that's my idea, and I've been working on this very intensely because I want this to happen, and I have somebody who wants to work with me and find a way how to funnel that money to me. And it's just that, you know, this is the pandemic. It really blocks
But let
lots
me,
of
can I
people's
ask,
bandwidth.
can I ask this question though? I mean, is it realistic to assume that the education department is going to have or be comfortable with another department implementing a program that involves teachers' time and effort and the resources of the education department? Does it make more sense
Mhm,
if they're swamped right now,
mhm.
offer to ghost write the grant or something for them? In other words, take the administrative work off of their shoulders and, present them with a document that they can basically review and sign and
Which
submit.
I already done, Greg. I already submitted, and the only thing I need is basically a check off. And I think I've done all of this work. I've written up the application. I've basically have a list of projects that people have basically signed on.
So with David, with Andrew, Andy?
Let me
Oh.
finish, please, Michael, because I want the point that Craig was just asking. So all of this work is already done, but the superintendent feels like he's getting from his internal teachership, doesn't want new initiatives. And he feels like if he brings that in right now, it's not going to be viewed upon positively. And as I said, there might be a different avenue where the sustainability coordinator says, hello, dedicated teachers, do you want to run a project? I have money to reimburse you for the time that you will invest in this. And I also have money for an award or an acknowledgement of excellent student work. And I think I got enough projects, 2 at Pine Hill, 1 at the middle school and 2 at the high school, associated with a couple of teachers, that will be enough. And the grant is asking for 6 projects. And I have lined these up with preliminary support. And I think at this point, I will have a conversation on Friday. And if there's a way I can run this through town or through the Department of Sustainability, then that's a good avenue.
Can I ask one question and make one suggestion just quickly?
Yeah.
And then I actually have to run. I apologize.
Yes, so do I.
How much dollars are some of these grants?
$5,000.
So small, they shouldn't be,
Yeah.
people need to, think long and hard at them. If you're getting a brick wall with the superintendent, why not go to the town school committee for Pine Hill or the regional school committee for the high school and just say, hey, can I get on your next meeting? I want to present some ideas.
I'm already at Pine Hill and they're fine. So the principal there is sold. I have a conversation on Friday or next Friday with middle school. And then at high school, I think it will also talk to the principal. So all of this is lined up. My deadline is
Good.
December 31st. So I know how to contact people and to present, and I will run with basically the projects and the people
Well,
that support
can you
them.
go with just the principal's approval, or do you have to get the superintendent's approval?
That's a good question. I think that we will discuss that with the Grinspoon grant director. There's particular ways how these programs have to be channeled through. And she was saying there could be a way how to circumvent this. And they have to find a way because they have so many projects that fell through. And we
And
just
now
have to work with
now the
people that-
superintendent has 1 foot out the door.
I know, I
Right.
know.
I gotta
And I
run.
cannot blame him because I think right now you're dealing with, and my brother is a high school teacher. So I have the same picture. I know what's going on in Germany and there's of course a complete lockdown.
Yeah.
So coming with new initiatives is challenging at this point. But at the same time, I think we do have these projects that people are excited about. I'm talking about teachers that raised their hands. And that's a good spot to be in. So I
Yeah,
think something will
thank you for
happen.
trying.
It's a good
Mhm.
investment in getting these people going. So hopefully
Right.
they'll find a creative way because they need to move their money. And it's good
Exactly,
curriculum and it's great curriculum development.
It is.
Picture.
exactly.
I mean, from
All
what
of
I,
this connects to science standards of 2nd, 3rd grade, 4th grade. Then in middle school, it will be connected to recycling. And at the high school, as I said, it's going to be social studies and behavioral change along with sustainability. So when this comes through, I think we can look at something that,
Right.
is
I
going to
like that.
be substantial.
I'm going to just cut quickly here before we end this thing. Are there any other, since the grants things are big, Gino or Dorothea, any other grant things that are in the making or,
Not right now, no.
okay.
And Tom left, it looks like.
Okay, then I guess our meeting is adjourned.